Hey guys, Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehan. I am super excited to talk about a subject that is very important to my heart and has to do with agreements, the power of agreements, the power of integration or integrity. That word integrity comes from being integrated, fully integrated. And let's talk about what is integration, what is agreement, and how do you get power out of agreement? I've just really wanted to delve in on this. I've actually been dealing with some things in this last few weeks here, and it's brought more and more attention to the subject. And so I just thought, there are ways that we can keep in alignment. And when we have that alignment and integration or integrity, then the alignment of frequency in our body is affected either one way or another. And how can we keep that in a positive and an upgraded way for us to have the best, highest frequency possible? Because we know when we have high frequency, then they have better optimal health, better clarity, focus. We can move in our purpose easily. We are attracting positive things into our life magnetically, whether it's abundance, health, thriving, partnership, whatever. And so I just wanted to talk about some basics with agreement, just because I really think this will be helpful tool in any of your lives, and with what's going on especially. But I just wanted to look up. So out of curiosity, I'm a word person, so I looked up agreement. The actual word for agreement in the dictionary is harmony or accordance, an opinion or feeling or position, or a result in agreeing. Okay. To negotiate, typically legally binding, but it doesn't have to be legally binding, some sort of arrangement in parties as to a course of action. So when someone is in agreement or in alignment with another person and you're working with another person, if there are things discussed, just because it's not written down and in contract doesn't mean that it isn't binding. Energetically, there are repercussions for not keeping your agreements. And I mean, Dr. Phil would say anyone who's late, for example, that's an issue of pride. I know people who personally are late for every single thing or never follow through or say they're going to do something and they don't. And this really does affect energy. On the other hand, I know people who, when they say they're going to do something, they actually do it. It's on time. Maybe they're even early. They show up. They're ready. They constantly are ahead of schedule and or keep their agreements, which is an awesome way to set up for trust and security and partnership for sure. So I just wanted, hey guys, I see some of you popped on. So when we're in disagreement or disharmony. So if agreement is harmony and agreement is a positioning with results where people are agreeing, then the opposite of that would be a disagreement, which when I think of the word disagreement, I think of like a fight or a conflict, which it kind of is, not only energetically, but also just when we were working with people. If there was an agreement made or some sort of promise that was made and then it's not kept or followed through with, then yeah, it definitely causes issues in relationship, wouldn't you say? And why is that? Well, it creates a path of not being able to trust someone. If someone continually says, I'll have this by tomorrow for you, or I'm working on it, or I'll meet you tomorrow, or I'll call you tomorrow, or I'll have this done for you tomorrow, or next week, or whatever the situation is, any agreement is an agreement. And when that is broken, trust is also broken. And this leaves the door open energetically to you getting more of that back. So staying true to yourself and not over promising. If you can't do it, then just don't commit. To keep your energy clear, the best way to do that is just to be very, very cautious and conscious of your agreements. Because once you make the mistake of making an appointment or setting up some sort of standard of expectation to the other person, if you don't follow through, then there is a problem. Now, I will say that, of course, life happens and things happen. And sometimes when we make agreements, things can change. And it's like, an emergency happens, or there's a death in the family, or a car accident, God forbid, or something like that. Of course, those are exceptions to the rule. It doesn't mess up your energy. And, if there's any way that you can connect with the person, it's very important to reach out and communicate and say, hey, you know what? I am so sorry, this thing has happened and I'm going to be 5 minutes late, or I'm going to be an hour late, or is there any way we can renegotiate on the commitment because I've had something happen. That is a way to keep your energy clear, to keep your integrity, to keep your trust, to keep building relationship, and to not be in disagreement, which is the opposite of agreement. So, for example, let's say you're supposed to have something done by Friday for somebody, and something's come up, or maybe a surgery is scheduled by a family member, or you have to bring your car in, or whatever. Then you would contact the person that you made the agreement with, not a side person, and say, hey, can you tell them I'm going to be late, or I won't be there, or contact or send a text through another person and say, can you reach out to so and so and tell them I won't be there Friday, or whatever. You always, whoever you make the agreement with, you get back to that person with that agreement and look for a renegotiation. And it needs to be two-sided, because agreement is with two people, right? And so get with the person you made the agreement with, and then renegotiate and just say, hey, this has come up. Is there any room to, shift this around? Or would it be okay? Be humble about it. Don't be like, this is what I'm doing now. And don't tell someone that you've already made an agreement with, this is what I'm doing now, or I'm not doing this anymore, or whatever the situation is, because that is disagreement. That is the opposite of integrity. And when you're out of integrity, it definitely affects your chakras, your biofield. All the things would be negatives. If you've read my book, The Science of Miracles, then you know that anything that you do out of less than integrity or less than love is going to give you negatives in your field, which then you will attract negatives in your field. So again, make a commitment with someone. If you have to change that commitment for any reason, you go to the person and you talk to them about how we can change it up a little bit. Is there opportunity? Ask. Make sure it's okay. Don't just assume. Don't say this is what I'm going to do. Don't just not show up at all. Don't go to someone else and work it out with them for them to work it out with them. Make sure it's a direct contact with the person that you actually made the agreement with. Someone else can't speak for that person. You have no idea what a third party or a fourth party or a fifth party may not have all the information that the person that you made the agreement with in the first place is. And so this is, again, it's really, really important for energy. So agreements are great. Disagreements, not so great. Disagreements would be out of alignment, out of harmony, would cause negatives and a deficit in the biofield, which will only attract more opportunity for other people to do the same thing to you. Your limbic system cannot tell the difference between what's real and what is in your imagination. So, and it also can't tell the difference between me and you. So if I make an agreement to you and I fail to make that agreement, then I'm actually failing me, and my body actually shows that I failed myself. And it gives all the chemicals that show that I'm not in agreement, that my body is not in alignment. It has chemicals that cause my downfall of immunity, of sleep patterns, of being able to do just the regular things. It will cause a decrease in frequency and negative in the biofield. So you collect people who start letting you down on a regular when you yourself are not living true to following up with your own agreements. So this is really, really important. Now, something that I've been noticing in this whole realm of things, there's two things actually I'm going to bring up. Is number one, I've seen a lot of people who stay in disagreement, meaning they don't keep their agreements. They get into disagreement or lack of integrity, and they follow it up with, well, I needed self-care. And it's like, okay, I understand self-care. I'm a big advocate for self-care, but self-care doesn't just ditch every agreement that you have. Again, there is a process. And when you make an agreement with someone, if you suddenly need self-care, then you would go back to the person, remember, that you made the agreement with, and then you would say, hey, you know what, I have overworked myself, or I have done this, or this thing has come up. Is there any room for negotiation on a different time or day that we can work this out? That would be integrity. That would be security. That would be keeping your agreement, and not just being like, oh, well, I'm taking a self-care day. Sorry, too bad for you. That would be a lack of integrity. That would be a disagreement. That would be not keeping your promise or your agreements. And yes, it's not a binding contract, but back in the day, your word was your word. And let your yes be your yes, and let your no be your no. We shouldn't have to have a written contract for every little single agreement that we make, but we should honor and respect and love people for their time and for what they've contributed to make arrangements to be at that agreement with you, whatever that case would be, whether it's online, in person, or a trip, or whatever the situation is. So keep an agreement. So self-care is not an excuse to bail on your agreement. You can do it. It's an opportunity to do it, but it is going to cause problems in your field, and your limbic system can't tell the difference whether you let someone else down or you let yourself down. When you let someone else down, your body registers that as letting yourself down, and you will not even have confidence in yourself to actually believe that you can go through with an agreement or integrity. And it does affect the field. So another thing that I keep seeing is when people will say, oh, well, I need healthy boundaries, and they'll just cut off from everybody. Whatever agreements they've made or whatever promises they've made, they'll just completely cut off and completely ghost someone because all of a sudden they need healthy boundaries. Okay, healthy boundaries is not an excuse to not have a healthy conversation. If for some reason you've made a change in heart, or you may not want to do this thing anymore, whether it's a health situation or you don't like the person anymore, or whatever the situation, creating healthy boundaries or setting healthy boundaries is not the pass on integrity. Okay, I think a lot of times people are using the healthy boundary thing as an excuse to ghost someone, to not actually face the opportunity to have a resolution, a healthy resolution in a situation. Take every situation as a learning opportunity, a lesson that somehow you can learn through this. And if you're having patterns where people are letting you down all the time, that's the time to look at yourself and say, what in the world am I doing to create this? Why are people letting me down? Why are people not showing up? Why are people not having integrity in my life? Look at your own integrity and your own integration and see, where is it that maybe I failed myself or other people that I'm attracting this? So those are some things to think about. And also, look, when I'm doing soul audits, what I'm seeing is people who have integrity, they have their masculine and their feminine balance, their chakras are in alignment. And guess what? Their heart is more open because they trust themselves. When they know that they're doing the best that they can and they're actually keeping their agreements in alignment, the heart will show an opening. And most honestly, to be honest, when I'm doing soul audits, I've yet to really find a whole lot of people over courage. I use the map of consciousness with Dr. Hawkins. I don't agree with a lot of things that he says, but he's a great guy. And I love a lot of his stuff. And I definitely use this map of consciousness for testing when I do soul audits. And again, I see a lot of people in the 200s, which is just kind of getting at that point past themselves and moving into courage to think about other people and to think about consequences, and thinking, having the courage to delve into your own self and to get yourself better. And so when I'm working with people and they have good integrity and they are keeping their promises and they were following through with what they say, guess what? Their heart is more open. And for someone with courage and a courage on the map, usually it's like maybe 2 or 3%. That's it, which is kind of crazy. But when I've seen people in love, which is 500 or more, which only seen 2 people in love that are not even people that I personally know, but just some people who are authors. What's his name? Toll Eckhart and what's the other guy's name? The guy who wrote the 4 Agreements. Both of them were in 500s. But for the most part, the more open that your heart is, and the equals with the integrity you are and where you are on the map. And so, and again, everything affects everything. So if your chakras or energy centers are all lined up and they're all balanced, masculine and feminine's balance, then guess what? Your heart will open more. And then guess what? Your biofield opens more. People at courage are usually at like 4 feet or so ish. Not a huge biofield. But when you're getting into love, or where you're getting into like 310 or 400 reason, you're talking about 16 feet of a radius. I mean, that's a pretty or big radius to have, and sometimes even higher. And so, we want to affect people with love. We want to have the opportunity to be at the highest frequency and integrity, where we're actually walking around at the supermarket or whatever, and people can actually bump into our love or our activation in our field to turn on and switch on anything that's could be working for them. We can affect people just by walking around if we are in integrity, if we are in our right alignment. Just like Peter's shadow in scripture, he was like literally walking around and people were like, oh my gosh, I got healed, right? And think about Jesus. Someone just barely touched his robe and all of a sudden he's like, okay, who did that? He knew that someone was in the field. And so anyway, I say all this to say we have such an opportunity here on earth while we are here to walk in integrity, to stay in alignment, to keep our agreements, to do everything possible to not be in disagreement. Because when we are in lack of agreement, guess what? That will bring disagreements, which brings negative in our field, which then we create more patterns that come to us that cause more heartache and more confusion because people won't show up. So I hope that this is helpful to you. Again, don't use the whole, I'm just doing self-care, so screw you. I don't, because self-care, okay, self-care is great. But if it's an excuse to get out of something that you haven't had the integrity to keep your agreement with, then that's not really self-care, is it? Because self-care would be, again, your limbic system can't tell the difference between me and you. So if self-care for me would also affect you, because we are one. So self-care is great. And I am all about self-care and scheduling self-care. And I have been in the position where I've ran myself so ragged because I've overcommitted, and then I wanted to keep my commitments that I was burnt out, and that can happen too. So pace yourself, be wise in your commitments, make sure that you're committing to the things that are best for you. That way you don't have to let anyone down and you don't have to be in disagreement and cause problems. And then secondly, do not ghost someone. Ghosting someone with the excuse of, setting boundaries, that is no bueno. It's not good for the field. It's not good for your patterns to come to you. It's not good in relationship. It's not good in security and creating partnership. Agreements are very powerful. They're very important. And it's an awesome opportunity to let your yes be your yes and your no be your no, and not necessarily have a binding contract, but just to have the confidence that when you make an agreement, you're actually going to keep it. You're going to follow through. In scripture, again, I'll go back to scripture. Job, all the things kept happening to everything around him, right? But in scripture, it says his integrity was his protection. His integrity was his protection. Again, integration. When we're integrated, mind, body, and soul, and we actually have the consciousness or the understanding that we are not the only ones on the planet, that it's not all about us, but that we are working with other people too. And other people have plans, they're doing things, and they're doing all kinds of stuff to make sure that they're keeping integrity with you. So when you don't follow through and you let them down, that causes disagreement. And that is not something that's good for your energy. If you're looking to keep your energy clear, then these are some things to really think about. And then again, the last thing is when you make an agreement with someone, don't talk to 5 other people about how you're breaking that agreement to get back to the other person. Contact the person that you actually made the agreement with. If you have a switch or a renegotiation opportunity, make sure to go to the person that you made the agreement to, because Those side people, they do not know what's going on. It's not their authority or their opportunity to speak for you or for someone else to make any kind of agreements outside of the agreement that was made. That's really, really important to keep your energy clear, is that you work out whatever renegotiations that need to be made with the person you started out with the commitment to. This is so, so important in this day and age. So there is power in agreement. We know where two or more are together in agreement, there is power. And so when we can be in agreement together, when we can keep our integrity and keep our agreements, we will see power in our lives. We will see new patterns, beautiful patterns that come back and help give us all of the things and tools that we need in order to be our best and sharpest tool here on the planet. And so I would love your comments. I would love to hear if this has helped you at all. And I hope you guys are having a great day. I will be teaching tonight in person on the Science of Miracles at Awakenings. And I'm really excited to be there tonight from 6 to 8 o'clock. And I'm going to be teaching more on this subject of the Science of Miracles. You can also get my book at swiftfire.org. Swiftfire.org. If you go over there, you can get it both on audio and or paperback. I prefer paperback, but go to swiftfire.org. This book talks a lot about the science of miracles and remembering the frequency of love. It goes into integration and integrity. It talks about agreements. It talks about frequency hopping. It talks about signature loops. It goes into just all the different ways that we can maintain and increase our own frequency in order for us to have the miracle life that we actually deserve and have the opportunity to live out and embody. You can have a life of miracles, but it does take conscious choices in what you eat, what you think, what you talk about, who you're partnering with, what you're choosing to do. Are you living true or are you living a lie? And when we live a lie, living a lie looks like overcommitment. Living a lie looks like ghosting someone. Living a lie looks like blaming. Living a lie looks like not taking ownership or responsible in all decisions and choices that you make. When you have integrity, you will have a life of miracles. And this book talks a lot about that. So if you don't have it and you're looking for ways to shift your patterns and you've had negative patterns, check out the book, go to swiftfire.org or get the audio. And I know this is going to help you guys. And I know that this is a time where we really, truly need to be living in integrity more than we ever have. I hope this is helping. I love you all so much. I wish you the best day ever. And I will talk soon. All right. Bye-bye.